here we are. This is S.x Love Psychedelics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat, bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more.
Thinking back to this relationship, like there's a couple of times where my orgasm or my libido were not there. And thank God, as a sex therapist, I was able to see this not as something wrong or broken, but as, oh, this is my body is saying that there's something that needs attention here. And I'd say the first time a few years ago, I was in a relationship that was not, there was a lot of challenges in what I was holding. Like I was holding a lot of emotional distress in that relationship for the other person. And my libido just wasn't there. And as a clue for me to understand what was leaking all the energy out of my body, like there was not the balance of the hormones. Like my progesterone was gone because uh, all of that was being used for the stress hormones instead of the sex hormones. So there's that information of getting to then look at, is this like, how is the relational dynamic contributing? And then I got sick last year with long COVID that ended up killing my whole hormone system and activating my Epstein Barr. And so then it was looking at the loss of libido or the challenge of orgasm. Again, not because I was broken, but because there's systems in my biological body that are preventing that. So I guess I say all of this too to even bring up your reaction around the 20-minute statistic of like were your or what are your what's the activation in your own body when you hear 20 minutes? Because to me, when I hear that, I'm like, sometimes that's really important for women to be able to take that time, and who's defining that's too much time for somebody if that is what's accurate for them.
I know. That's like another paradox where there shouldn't be any standard or goal that you're reaching toward. And there is like if you are trying, if you are feeling rushed at all, then that kills the mood. Or if you feel like
Totally.
have to have an orgasm, then that creates stress. So there's this balance between like thinking of it as possible and doable, and also like you're not broken if it is challenging at certain points, or if it is not always available to you, or if it takes a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of factors affecting orgasms that like we don't acknowledge. Like you said, hormones, that's kind of a like newly understood. And pelvic floor, there's also like the pelvic floor and the muscles, I think has a huge impact. I know
Yep.
myself doing pelvic floor physical therapy where they sort of massage you internally in the vagina and around it. Like for me, that actually changed how easily I can orgasm because I think like tension in that area can impede it.
Yeah.
There's what else was I gonna say? There's like, yeah, so I sometimes I wish like we didn't have the statistics at all, but I think the reason I got fired up about that one was it was always used in the context of like men can orgasm so easily for women.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really tricky.
Mm,
And and I do think that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because if you think like it's this intimidating task, I think women are going to feel really nervous, like maybe it's not worth the time, even though it should be, but they might feel like it might not happen at all. And men might, or any partner of a woman might feel like nervous, and then their nerves can also get in the way of their ability to please a partner. So
yeah.
um, I think like it's it. it can be a good exercise to actually give yourself like an ample amount of time and say like for 20 or 30 minutes or whatever, like you are going to please me or I'm going to touch myself. And there's not even a goal of orgasm. I'm just going to relax and enjoy it. That's like a really good exercise actually for someone who has trouble orgasming.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is like kind of a paradox because I also don't love when people are like just let go of the goal of orgasm because if that's what your body wants, like you don't need to do that. But it can just I think like the ideal is to know that this is something that you like can enjoy as a woman and should not be placed on the back burner and should not be deemed difficult, but also like however you get there, it doesn't matter. Or if you ever feel like having sex without an orgasm, which for some people that's like fun because it's more about full body sensual pleasure or emotional connection.
Yeah.
But like I think women who want to orgasm should know that like they're not asking for too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, yeah, holding the paradox, but I think it's also really healing the relationship that we have with our bodies, and sexual education is part of that. When we know about how our bodies can work and what can influence it, there can be more of a compassion around our bodies and meeting our bodies where they're at and not pressuring it, but also not forgetting what's possible in the body. So when I was sick last year, it was like I understand all of this, and it was dropping more into the pleasure and the connection and reaching peak places of pleasure. And if the orgasm wasn't available, or if my body, because I was dealing with chronic pain and chronic fatigue, it was also like, okay, my body's just operating differently right now, and letting that be okay. And also not letting his orgasm be the end of sex, but letting the end of sex be when it was done or complete for me as well, and not continuing to push beyond the completeness in myself just to give him an orgasm. And I didn't have any stress around that. It was just like, oh, I know my body, this is just what it's available for, and we can be in the pleasure and the enjoyment of that too. So I think coming back to what you said, the paradox of holding those two dynamic points.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to sexlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on Sex Love Psychedelics.